Hi, everyone. Welcome to our third Tech Bite on remediating students remotely, 3 methods and 5 tools. Thanks for being here with me today and wanting to learn a little bit more about some great new tech. I want to give credit where credit is due and thank Slides Carnival for these great slides. So firstly, how can we remediate remotely? That's one of our big topics for today. There are going to be 3 kinds of remediation that we're going to talk about, and then I'm going to tell you some tools that can help meet those needs. So the first kind is self-determined remediation, the second being selection-driven remediation, and the third being progress-driven remediation. So firstly, self-directed remediation puts a lot of effort on the student and less on the teacher. So for a student, this is a little bit of a difficult process because our students are going to have to think about what it is that they do and do not know and be committed to improving their knowledge and learning more. For our teachers, though, using these 2 particular tools, quizzes and GoFormative, it's a pretty easy form of remediation because the quizzes are going to have a ton of content for us to be able to pull from. So here's the method. Students are going to reflect on what they've learned either in a lesson or in a unit. This could be through a series of I can statements that the students either indicate they can or cannot do at this point, or through a checklist of skills, depending on what the teacher wants to provide. And at that point, the teacher provides practice quizzes and assignments that are related back to those I can statements or those checklisted items. The teacher is going to provide those practice quizzes and assignments to help prep a student for probably a test or maybe a project. The student is then going to complete a certain amount of those practice assignments or practice quizzes for bonus points or maybe for credit, depending on how you want to structure that. So one great tool to make this happen, to do this self-directed remediation, is going to be quizzes. So quizzes is kind of like Kahoot. If you've ever used that before, it's going to be a series of interactive quizzes where there's going to have a series of multiple choice questions. The kids are going to have to select which one's the right answer. Quizzes is fun because it gives memes after each question, so it's kind of interactive in that way, or it's maybe speaks a little bit more to the kiddos. But it's going to be a great tool because there's a giant library of quizzes that you can pull. So I just typed in multiplication and I pulled in the screenshot to show you how many there are, and there are many more pages and pages that you can just pull right in. You can give an access code and the kids can just start working through quizzes. In a similar way, GoFormative is another great tool. This one's even better, I would say, if you're thinking more about writing, because GoFormative has options for, short answers or multiple choice or true false or just a kind of a series of different styles of questions. So that's going to be maybe a little bit more helpful. So it's a little less game-like, a little more serious, but still has a really great library of resources. So again, I typed in multiplication here, and you can see there's a number of multiplication type assignments that you can give to the kids. So essentially, that's would be the idea with our self-directed remediation. You give them the checklist, and then they would complete different activities to help remediate themselves on those skills if they are having some issues with obtaining those skill sets. The second is a selection-driven remediation. So for students, this is a little bit easier because it's going to be a little more straightforward as far as what they're meant to do. The programs are going to tell them exactly what to do next. For the teachers, it's going to be a little harder because the teachers have to set up a little more on the back end. So the 2 tools we're going to talk about with this are going to be Dectoy and Google Forms. So here's the method. The students are going to work through a review activity to test their understanding of a lesson or a unit. This might be just a 1-day or a 2-day review activity. The teachers are going to design ahead of time this activity to direct students to a different task depending on the answer they provide after each other question or a group of questions. So meaning if the kiddos answer the question correctly, they move on to the next question. But if they're wrong about that, that's then when a remediation piece will pop up. So on Google Forms, whether you know this or not, Google Forms has a great feature on any of their multiple choice or true-false questions where they can go to a certain section based on your answer. So you can design a Google form with multiple different sections where you have maybe just 1 or 2 questions per section. And then depending on what the kid answers, you will send them maybe to some other task. So if we're thinking multiplication just for our baseline example, if they're answering their question wrong, it could send them to a review video that you've created for them, or a review YouTube video that you've linked for them, or could send them to a quizzes or a GoFormative from our previous assignment, from our previous discussion. So there's a lot that we can do, or we can direct them to a certain place to complete a certain task based on how they're answering their questions. So for some of our kiddos, this may take a long time if they're getting a lot wrong, but for others, they could just kind of go through it really quickly, and we might need some enrichment for them. So we have some different options within that Google Forms piece. I have reached my limit on Screencastify. I'm going to come back with a second video to continue discussing how we can remediate remotely.